two men walked out of a late night restaurant in Chicago, and within seconds, one of the most debated OBlock murders in years exploded into gunfire. It happened around 1:20 in the morning on May 10th, 2025. Duke, also known as Munna Duke, and Youngin, also known as Youngin from the Jets, were leaving Pork Chop on North Broadway when gunmen jumped out of a stolen Infiniti Q50 and opened fire. Duke was hit in the chest. Youngin was hit multiple times. A third man, Smooth, was shot in the back and survived. By the time the police tape went up, the shooters were gone. By the time the news identified the victims, the internet had already turned the case into a war room. And by the time that stolen Infiniti was found burned out near East 134th Place, close to Altgale Gardens, people were no longer just asking who pulled the trigger. They were asking who had the location, who had the car, who had the motive, who was false claiming, and who was quietly telling the truth through posts, songs, and subliminals. This is why the full case file matters, because on TWW the breakdown does not just stop at the basic news report. The full file goes through the timeline, the Reddit claims, the screenshots, the alleged posts, the connected murders, and the theories side by side, so people can see why this case is still so debated. Because the murder of Duke and Youngin is not just about what happened outside Pork Chop, it is about what happened after. That night was supposed to be a celebration. According to the online breakdowns, OBlock members were out celebrating Glicia's birthday. They were not standing in Parkway Gardens. They were not on a normal block. They were up north, away from the center of the old war zone, at a restaurant where people probably felt safer than they would have felt posted outside at home. But that distance did not protect them. It may have made them easier to catch. When Duke, Youngin, and Smooth walked out, the shooters were already close enough to move. The Infiniti pulled up, the doors opened, the gunman jumped out and started firing. This was not a random argument that turned into shots. This was not a normal fight outside a restaurant. This was a targeted ambush. Multiple rounds, multiple victims, one vehicle, one escape route. Then the car was dumped and burned far away from the scene. That one detail is important. The stolen Infiniti was not just abandoned around the corner. It was taken far south and burned near Altgale Gardens. That means whoever did this had a plan after the shooting. They had a route. They had somewhere to dump the car. And they had enough awareness to destroy one of the biggest pieces of evidence connected to the hit. That is why the full breakdown on TopTrendReport.tv.com includes the car location as one of the key pieces, because the burned car is not just a detail. It is one of the reasons the Ghouly Gang theory even entered the conversation. Youngin died after being shot multiple times. Duke died after being hit in the chest. Smooth survived, and his survival is one of the most important parts of the story. Because in any murder case, the person who made it out alive may know more than the entire internet combined. But the internet did not wait. The second the name started spreading, the theories started moving. When Duke and Youngin died, the reaction was instant. OBlock's enemies celebrated. Some posted laughing reactions. Some dropped subliminals. Some used emojis. Some allegedly made references to two people being gone. And almost immediately, people began pointing toward TW, STL, EBT, Jaro, and Marcus Way. That made sense to a lot of people because of history. TW and Jaro had long-standing reasons to hate OBlock. They lost people in the old wars. Their dead were dissed. Their names were used in songs. Their pain had been public for years. So when OBlock took a double loss, people naturally looked toward the older ops first. But this is where the case gets tricky, because the loudest reaction after a murder is not always the real answer. Sometimes people celebrate because they did it. Sometimes they celebrate because they hate the victim. Sometimes they claim it because they want the trophy. Sometimes they know who did it and want the pressure pointed somewhere else. and sometimes the actual shooters say the least. That is why the case file on Top Trend Report TV.com is important. The full breakdown does not just say this person posted this, so they must have done it. It separates confirmed facts from alleged claims, street rumors, and online speculation, because in this case, everybody was talking, but not everybody was telling the truth. The first major theory is the TW, Jaro, STL, EBT, and Marcus Way theory. This is the theory that spread the fastest because it fits the old OBlock storyline people already know. OBlock and those circles have been connected to years of losses, disses, revenge claims, and public drill history. So when Duke and Youngin were killed, a lot of people immediately believed it was Get Back. Online users pointed to different posts after the murder. They pointed to alleged OBlock members dropping signs while holding Youngin's obituary. They pointed to ops reacting like they knew something. They pointed to people using the peace sign emoji, which Reddit users interpreted as a reference to the two victims. They also pointed to music. There were lyrics floating around from people connected to Marcus Way and Jaro that fans connected to the shooting. Lines about hopping out, lines about doubling up, lines about people trying to party and getting hit. Because Duke and Youngin were leaving a celebration when they were killed, people treated those lyrics like clues. But lyrics alone do not prove a murder. That is the problem with drill culture. Sometimes lyrics are real, sometimes they are exaggeration, sometimes they are recycled, sometimes they are just meant to make enemies mad. But when a line sounds too close to a real incident, the internet starts building a case around it. That is what happened here. A lesser known TW member named J Money was also brought up heavily in Reddit discussions, because users claimed he kept hinting at the murder and using the peace sign emoji. Other TW connected people allegedly posted subliminals too. Then people started saying the hit was Get Back for D Money, Poppy, TB, or other losses tied to the older OBlock war. That version sounds believable on the surface. OBlock loses 2 members. Old Ops celebrates. Old Ops post signs. Old Ops drop lyrics. OBlock starts sliding on TW and EBT areas. Then later, people online point to shootings on TW's block and say OBlock got back. But that is where the theory starts cracking, because people close to OBlock allegedly push back against the idea that TW, STL, or Jaro really did it. Some posts suggested those groups wished it was their work. Other posts suggested the real Get Back had not happened yet. Even after later shootings, people tried to connect to Duke and Youngin. That is why this case is still open in the streets. If TW and Jaro really did it, why were some people close to OBlock allegedly saying it was not them? If the later shootings were really Get Back, why were others still acting like the score was not settled? And if the oldest ops were the real killers, why did the Front Street theory start gaining so much momentum? The full case file on Top Trend Report TV.com lays those claims out in order, because the order matters. A post made 2 hours after a murder does not mean the same thing as a post made 2 weeks later. A direct diss does not mean the same thing as a vague emoji. And a denial from somebody close to the victims may carry more weight than a celebration from somebody far away. That is why the TW theory cannot be ignored, but it also cannot be treated as confirmed. One of the biggest reasons this case became messy was the murder of Rell Rell from Jaro City. When Rell Rell was killed in late June, people immediately connected it to Duke and Youngin. The timing was close. Duke and Youngin died in May. Rell Rell died weeks later. He was connected to Jaro. Jaro was one of the groups being accused online, so the internet created a clean revenge story. Duke and Youngin die, Rell Rell dies, OBlock got back, but the deeper Reddit discussions pushed a different version. According to those claims, Rell Rell was not killed by OBlock at all. He was allegedly killed by people from 800, and the motive was tied to 800's own issues with STL, TW, Jaro, and their allies. In that version, Rell Rell was not Duke and Youngin Get Back. He was part of a separate Woodlawn War. That matters because it changes the whole timeline. If Rell Rell was really get back for Duke and Youngin, then the story looks simple. But if Rell Rell was 800 work, then the internet was counting the wrong body. And if the internet was counting the wrong body, then OBlock's real retaliation for Duke and Youngin may not have happened yet. That is the kind of detail that makes the Top Trend Report TV.com breakdown valuable, because most people online just see a name die and connect it to the biggest recent murder. But the full case file breaks down why Rell Rell's death may belong to a different conflict completely. And that is the problem with Chicago street stories. Multiple wars happen on the same map. Multiple groups hate the same people. Multiple people claim the same work, and sometimes the internet forces one murder into the wrong storyline because the timing looks right. The Front Street theory is the one that makes this case feel different from every recycled OBlock documentary, because this theory is not just about the old STL and OBlock history. This one is about new attention, family ties, people switching sides, shorties from different connected sets, and possible location access. Front Street and OBlock have had issues for years. One of the roots people point to is the situation involving Man, who was once tied to OBlock before being pushed away after the Takia Holmes tragedy in 2017. Online discussions say Front Street took him in and protected him because of family connections. That created deeper tension, because when one side protects someone, the other side rejects. The personal issue can become a set issue. Over time, the tension kept showing up. Big Oney dissed Front Street online and in music. Front Street members dissed OBlock members in fallen names. Oney was allegedly shot by Front Street in 2021. People speculated about Man from Front Street being killed by OBlock, although other online researchers dispute that and say his death was tied to CVLs from Inglewood. Then there was AJ from Front Street and Nickel Gang. Some people believe OBlock shorties, especially TSG connected names, had something to do with AJ's death in 2023. Others say it may have been TW. That part is disputed, but if OBlock was involved in AJ's death, that gives Front Street and Nickel Gang a direct modern reason to want revenge. And then there's China Man from Trap City. China Man's death is one of the deeper pieces in this case because it connects to Trap City, Front Street, TSG, and alleged family ties. Online users claim China Man was related to Lappy, a Front Street face, and also connected by blood to Keyente from OBlock. That matters because this is exactly how Chicago street politics gets complicated. People are not always separated cleanly by gang lines. A person can have family on one side, friends on another side, history with a third side, and enemies in all three directions. That is how location access becomes possible. One of the biggest online claims is that Lappy may have helped get the location, even if people do not believe he was one of the shooters. That is not confirmed by police, it is a street theory. But it became popular because people believed Lappy had enough old familiarity with OBlock circles to know how to get close, how to find out where people were, or how to pass information to people who wanted to move. And if Youngin really posted that he was outside and told people to message for the location, then that theory gets even darker. Because now the question is not just who had a gun, the question is who had access. That is why the full case file on Top Trend Report TV.com includes a separate section on the possible location leak theory. It is one of the most important parts of the case because targeted murders are not only about shooters, they are about information. The names DVs and Lil Dre became central to the Front Street, Nickel Gang, and Trap City theory. Online users claim DVs was connected to Nickel Gang and Front Street, while Lil Dre was connected to Trap City, and possibly tied into Lamron circles through numbers and associations. Again, police have not confirmed these names as suspects publicly. No public arrest has tied them to the Duke and Youngin murder, but Reddit users focused on them because of posts, snippets, and lyrics that seemed too specific to ignore. The lyric that got the most attention was about one body not being enough, it being supposed to be 3, but leaving with 2. That line spread because it appeared to match the pork chop shooting too closely. 3 people were shot, 2 died, 1 survived. When a lyric lines up with the exact shape of a real shooting, people start treating it like a confession, even when it has not been proven in court. Other alleged lines reference someone getting caught at the door, someone being on their phone, and OBlock knowing who did it. That stood out because Duke and Youngin were hit as they were leaving the restaurant, and the internet believed the door area and phone detail matched the scene. This is where the Front Street theory started feeling more specific than the TW theory. The TW theory had motive and public celebration. The Front Street theory had alleged lyrics that seemed to match the mechanics of the shooting. That does not make it confirmed, but it explains why so many people shifted from the older TW theory into the newer Front Street, Nickel Gang, and Trap City Lane. Then came the alliance confusion. Online users pointed out that some of the people accused in the theory were seen around Lamron and TTE members. That bothered people because Duke had connections and friendships in that broader world. Puda from Lamron was mentioned because he seemed hurt by Duke's death, while people also claimed Lamron figures were showing support around individuals accused online. That is the part that makes the story colder. In the streets, loyalty is not always clean. Somebody can mourn you and still be cool with somebody accused of standing near your death. Somebody can be friends with both sides. Somebody can stay neutral because the politics are too messy. Somebody can act like they care but still not risk their own life over it. That is why this case hits deeper than just another shooting. It exposes how tangled the alliances became. Front Street, OBlock, Lamron, TTE, Trap City, Nickel Gang, and other circles are not always separated by clear walls. Sometimes the walls have doors, sometimes people walk through them, and sometimes that is exactly how somebody gets caught. The Ghouly Gang theory is not the loudest theory, but it exists because of the burned car. The stolen Infiniti was found burned near East 134th Place, close to Outgale Gardens. Online users connected that area to Ghouly Gang territory. From there, people started asking whether the shooters had ties there, whether the car was dumped with help, or whether the location was meant to confuse people. The strongest part of the Ghouly Gang theory is geography. The weakest part is everything else. A burned car location does not prove who pulled the trigger. Shooters can dump a car anywhere. They can use an allied area. They can use a neutral area. They can use a place they know will be quiet. They can even dump a car near another group's area to make people look the wrong way. But the car still matters because whoever burned it had to get there. They had to know the route, they had to know where to leave it, and they had to have enough confidence that they would not get caught standing around a stolen Infiniti after a double murder. That is why the car location is one of the strongest visual pieces in the case file. On TopTrendReportTV.com, the route from pork chop to the burn spot is one of the details people need to pay attention to. Because even if Ghouly Gang did not do it, the car's final location tells us something about the planning after the hit. One of the strangest online details was the alleged bloody chain situation. Reddit users discussed a Front Street connected figure allegedly posting a chain that people believed had something to do with OBlock after the murder. Some users treated it as a trophy. Others said it was fake. Some people close to OBlock allegedly denied that any chain was taken. This is the kind of detail that can completely distort a case. If the chain was real, it suggests somebody took something from the victims or from the scene. If the chain was fake, it suggests someone was clout chasing off a real double murder. If the chain belonged to somebody else, it becomes misdirection. And if people close to the situation denied it, then that denial becomes part of the evidence trail too. That is why these posts cannot just be mentioned casually. They have to be placed on a timeline. Who posted first, who responded, who denied it, who liked the denial, who kept hinting after, who deleted their page, who went quiet. Those are the details that separate a lazy breakdown from a real case file. And that is why Top Trend Report TV.com goes deeper than this script can. The full breakdown lets people see the screenshots and judge how strong each claim really is. The Duke and Youngin case sits inside a larger chain of connected violence and disputed retaliation. Rell Rell's murder became one of the biggest connected names because people thought he was get back, but deeper Reddit discussion claims 800 may have been behind that, not OBlock. Leak from Marcus Way was also discussed because Marcus Way names were already being watched after the Duke and Youngin claims. Whether Leak's death was directly tied to the pork chop shooting is not confirmed, but his name entered the atmosphere because the same connected circles were under pressure. AJ from Front Street and Nickel Gang matters because his death may have created motive for Front Street and Nickel Gang retaliation, especially if OBlock shorties were involved. China Man from Trap City matters because his death connects to Trap City, TSG, and alleged family ties that may have helped shape the Front Street theory. Man from Front Street matters because his death has been debated in relation to OBlock and other groups, showing how old claims still influence current tension. Big Oney being shot matters because it shows OBlock. And Front Street tension was not just internet dissing, there was real violence behind it. And 800 matters because their separate war with STL, TW, Jaro, and connected circles may have caused the internet to misread bodies as OBlock get back when they belong to another conflict. That is why Duke and Youngin's murder is not just one story, it is a crossroads. Old OBlock wars, new shorty politics, Front Street tension, Trap City revenge, Nickel Gang claims, Ghouly Gang geography, 800 pressure, Jaro grief, TW celebrations, and OBlock trying to figure out who really owed them blood. That full connected murder map is on Top Trend Report TV.com, where each death is separated by confirmed facts, online claims, and disputed street theories. The real story is that by 2025, the war around OBlock had changed. The most famous names were no longer the only names that mattered. King Von was gone, FBG Duck was gone. Many of the older figures were dead, locked up, older or less active, but the younger generation was still outside. That is where this case lives. Duke and Youngin were not killed at the beginning of the OBlock story. They were killed in the aftermath. The part where the old murders already created a map, but newer people are still walking through it with guns, songs, memories, and grudges they inherited. TSG shorties, Front Street shorties, Nickel Gang, Trap City, Ghouly Gang, 800, TW and Jaro's newer faces. All of these names represent a newer version of the same violence. And that is what makes Duke and Youngin's murder feel so important. It shows that the old war did not end when the famous rappers died. It just changed hands. The old names became hashtags. The new names became suspects, victims, claimers, and targets. And every time someone dies, the internet tries to connect it back to the old story because that is the story everybody understands. But the truth may be in the newer names people are not paying enough attention to. That is why the full case file on Top Trend Report TV.com focuses heavily on the newer fallout, not just the old FBG and OBlock history, because everybody already knows the old headlines. The real value is in the deeper connections people are missing now. Duke and Youngin's murder is still debated because every theory has something that makes sense. The TW and Jaro theory has motive, history, claims, reactions, and old revenge energy. The Front Street theory has new attention, possible location access, alleged lyrics that seem to match the shooting, and specific names tied to Nickel Gang and Trap City. The Ghouly Gang theory has the burned car location and possible alliance connections. But every theory also has problems. TWW and Jaro were loud, but OBlock connected voices allegedly pushed back. Front Street has specific claims, but no public arrest confirms it. Ghouly Gang has geography, but geography alone is not proof. And the official public facts only confirm the shooting, the victims, the targeted nature of the attack, the surviving third victim, and the burned infinity. Everything else lives in the gray area between street knowledge and internet speculation. That gray area is where this case lives. And that is why people should go to Top Trend Report, TV.com, for the full breakdown, because the case file separates what is confirmed, what is alleged, what is strongly rumored, and what is weak speculation. Without that separation, the story turns into everybody just saying names. After Duke and Youngin died, OBlock was hit with one of its biggest losses in years. This was not one person killed in a quiet incident. This was a double murder, a public ambush, a stolen car, a burned getaway vehicle, a surviving witness, a restaurant shut down, a wave of op reactions, a wave of theories, a wave of alleged claims, and a new debate over whether OBlock even knew who really did it. That is what makes the case so haunting, because the truth may not be in the loudest post. It may be in the quietest detail, the route to Oakdale Gardens, the person who had the location, the person who posted too fast, the person who denied too strongly, the person who left town, the lyric that matched too closely, the body that people counted wrong, the retaliation that may have belonged to a different war, the name nobody was watching until after the murder. That is the real story of Duke and Youngin, not just two men killed outside Pork Chop. A murder that exposed how messy Chicago's newer street politics had become. A murder where TWW, Jaro, Front Street, Nickel Gang, Trap City, Ghouly Gang, and 800 all became part of the conversation in different ways. A murder where the internet wanted a clean answer, but the streets gave back a maze. And until somebody is charged, convicted, or officially tied to the case, the truth sits between the police report, the burned infinity, the surviving witness, the deleted post, the songs, and the people who may have said too much without saying everything. Go to Top Trend Report, TV.com to see the full Duke and Youngin case file, the full timeline, the connected murders, the Reddit claims, the disputed theories, and the evidence trail broken down in one place. Because this case is not finished. The internet may have theories, the streets may have whispers, but the full breakdown is where the pieces start lining up.